Factorio Friday Facts number 445 went up yesterday, August 7th, written by Klonan, titled The Biters Bite Back.
This is the Factorio Friday Facts Companion from Damatis. This episode was generated with AI by Damatis. We're unofficial, not affiliated with Woob software, and everything factual you hear is sourced from the post itself, which you should go read.
And this is the first Friday Facts since number 444, back on June 26th. 6 weeks of silence.
Which the post explains. Klonan says he was planning to write about these biter and enemy behavior changes before the 2.1 release, but, quote, an unfortunately timed neck injury led to it being postponed.
So the changes shipped first and the explanation arrived after, which he frames as a bonus because now he can write about the player reactions and the funny bugs found along the way.
The subject is a rework of the enemy expansion planner, and Klonan opens with a confession.
He says he likes the biters, likes fighting them, likes clearing nests when expanding, and then, however, I never had fun with the expansion groups.
And the reason is software archaeology. The planner dates to 2013, and in his words, it never really received a holistic review of how it was working in the modern context of the game. Every problem he lists is a rule that was correct when written and quietly became wrong as the game grew around it.
Problem 1. Expansion groups were too small.
The map generator got tuned so the nests you find are a real challenge. The planner never got that tuning, so it kept sending small sorties.
And the complaint isn't that it was easy. Klonan says small expansion nests do not really create a challenge. They just annoy the player and create busy work.
Busy work, not difficulty. Chores.
His fixed statement is the poster line. It would feel much more compelling and meaningful to have one large expansion nest rather than 10 tiny ones.
So group size now scales with the evolution factor and is modified by the map generator's biter base size. The goal, in his words, is that at any point in the game, an expansion party would be sized to present a good challenge at your current technology level.
He wants expansion nests to match existing ones so that you can't tell which were from the map generation and which were from the expansions. That's a consistency constraint, not a difficulty one. Remember it.
The numbers moved twice. 2.1.0 was too strong. Klonan links the bug report titled Experimental Biter Expansion Too Strong and retuned for 2.1.13.
After retuning, bases start smaller, from 20 down to 10, but scale to the same maximum of 80, picked randomly between the two. In 2.0, the curve was a straight line from 5 to 20.
So the ceiling went from 20 to 80? 4 times larger late game parties.
There was also a placement bug, groups settling a little bit too close to the factory walls, fixed for 2.1.13.
Problem 2, and this is the best engineering story in the post.
The time between expansions didn't scale with the number of candidate chunks. So if you had a lot of candidates somewhere far away, you wouldn't get any expansions near your base.
That sounds abstract, and it absolutely is not. It means the more of the map you revealed, the fewer attacks you got at home.
Klonan names it an unfortunate inverse difficulty relationship. Players who explored around the map early would experience fewer expansions near their factory, and biter nests in explored territory would, quote, thicken and become much denser than intended.
So exploring early was a stealth difficulty setting?
Stealth easy setting now and a stealth hard one later because you've been quietly breeding a wall of dense nests out in the fog while nothing happened at home.
And here's the general shape. Our read, not something the post says. It's a proxy-metric problem. The planner used candidate chunk count as a stand-in for how much expansion pressure exists. Fine when that set was small and local. Once it could be enormous and mostly irrelevant, the proxy stopped tracking what it measured and inverted.
A mostly fresh rewrite of the heuristic and penalties for the candidate chunks, trying to ensure that areas explored but otherwise untouched by the player wouldn't have an effect on the expansion behavior.
The stated result? Significantly fewer candidate chunks placed closer to open areas, or areas the player has cleared before. And expansions should now feel more predictable with more consistent timing and pressure.
There's space-age fallout, too. Part of the rewrite untangled subtle biter-related assumptions that were causing problems with the pentapods on Gleba. A biter-specific assumption had leaked into a system a completely different planet's creatures depend on.
Problem 3. The building itself.
Separate system. The planner decides when and where. A unit group with a build-based command does the construction. Same archaeology. Many subtle assumptions and hard-coded numbers throughout the logic.
The headline change is one constant: the cooldown between building entities. Before, it was 5 ticks per hit point of the entity being built.
So the tougher the thing being built, the longer the biters take to place it.
Which sounds nice, Klonan says, and effectively made the biters act inconsistently and idle for a huge amount of time. His number, building a few worms, could take over 20 minutes.
And it had an inverse difficulty curve. Late-game nests would build significantly slower than weaker early-game nests because hit points rise as the game goes on, and the cooldown was proportional to hit points.
So the stronger the enemy got, the slower it worked. Second independent instance of the same failure shape in one post.
Same root cause. Hit points used as a proxy for how much effort something should take. Intuitive, and it scales the wrong way against a progression system that inflates hit points.
The new rule is a static, tunable cooldown.
And the trade-off deserves saying, because the post doesn't dwell on it. A constant carries no signal. A worm and a spawner now take the same time. They traded simulated realism for a number they can actually balance.
And they use that immediately. 2.1.0 shipped at 5 seconds. Klonan says that after more playtesting and player feedback, it was probably a bit on the quick side. And there's a design reason. It's nice to be able to catch the biters in the act of expanding, which a longer cooldown gives more opportunity for.
So for 2.1.13, 30 seconds by default, 10 seconds for Death World.
6 times slower than the release value on default settings.
Now, the funny bug, which is also a modding story.
One change was API visible. The entity a unit builds is now defined by the unit itself, rather than baked into base same logic. Klonan says this allows much greater control and actual use of the build-based behavior outside the specific base game context.
And to celebrate, he used it to add what he calls a biological caste system. Biters become spawners, spitters become worms.
A bug report arrived, actually titled, Oops, All Worms.
Because, of course, an all-spitter group builds a base of nothing but worms, an all-biter group, nothing but spawners. And in the early game, the game doesn't even spawn spitters, so every early group was 100% biters.
Notice what killed the feature. Not that it was buggy. Klonan says it could be a nice feature. Some expansions, more spawners, some more worms. It died because map generation is a pretty consistent 50-50 split, so the new nests were visibly different from generated ones.
Which violates the consistency goal from the first section.
Exactly. He says it clashes with the prior goal of, quote, you can't tell which nests are from the map generation and which are from expansions. So in 2.1.14, he reverted to 2.0 behavior. Biters and spitters can both become spawners and worms.
Last change, and players will probably feel this one most.
A new alert. If an expansion base, worm, or spawner is built in a chunk with active radar coverage, you get an expansion base built alert.
And the justification is the best line in the post. We could espouse the virtue of being vigilant with checking the map, he says, but we have machines to do that for us.
In an automation game, solving an information problem within fiction automation, instead of asking the player to be more diligent.
The constraint matters. It only applies to chunks with active coverage. A radar's far scan might catch them at the right time if you're lucky.
So this is quietly an argument for radar coverage as a real investment, not map filler.
So what changes in your save?
Bigger, less frequent parties, up to 80 units late game against 20 in 2.0. Directed at open areas instead of thickening ground you merely walked through. And base building is slower and consistent. 30 seconds per entity on default, 10 on Death World. That's your window to catch an expansion in progress, and it's a real window now.
If you mod, build-based behavior is driven by unit prototypes now, a new capability, not a balance tweak. And the tuning is still live. 2.1.0, then 13, then 14, all touching this one subsystem. If the numbers feel off, check which point release you're on before forming an opinion.
Klonan writes that the idea, if you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all, applies here. And then the biter expansion groups should just act like you would have always thought they acted.
That's the whole rework in a sentence. Nobody's mental model said cooldown is 5 ticks per hit point. Everyone said biters build a base. The work was making the code match the model people already had.
And the tuning pass is open. He asks whether other players agree the feature never landed right, and signs off with, let us know what you bite at the usual places. So these numbers may move again.
That's Friday Facts number 445. Read the original at factorio.com/blog, where the graphs and the candidate maps do work audio can't. And click the bug reports he links, they're the actual changelog.
This has been the Factorio Friday Facts Companion from Demotes. This episode was generated with AI by Demotes. Unofficial, not affiliated with Woob Software. Back next Friday, assuming the biters let us.